Yo, what's going on guys? Havoc here now. Back! Today we're back at it again with episode 8 of 17 things only Clash of Clans OGs may remember. A series full of old Clash nostalgia and things that you just had to be there to fully understand. And hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, there's 7 others in the series that I highly recommend. So full playlist down below and it'll also be at the end of the video. Anyways, let's get to it.
Let's do this.
When everyone had to war. Some of you may remember of a time when opting out of war was not an option. In fact, you had to war if you were in a clan. Once the leader hit that start war button, everyone and their mama was included. There was no way to not participate unless you left the clan and came back. It was like this when Clan Wars was first added in April 2014, and obviously this was a pretty major flaw in how it was originally designed, because not everyone is gonna have the time nor want to war. This created a problem where players were getting kicked for not attacking or sucking at war, leaving them no option but to seek for a clan that didn't war. Fortunately, a little less than a year later on February 24th, 2015, you could now opt in or out, and the leader could leave some members out of the war. At last, war wasn't some mandatory thing that you had to do. Hero Regeneration. If you thought training times and spells took forever back then, you'll probably be surprised to hear that a level 30 king took 21 hours and 40 minutes to heal up in January 2013. Yeah, good old days, right? Maybe not so much now. Fuck that. Using your heroes one time a day, that's crazy. Luckily though, this was reduced drastically within the next few months. February 2013, a max level king's regeneration time was reduced to 3 hours and 54 minutes, and by May 2013, when they added level 40 heroes, it took exactly 3 hours. This just kept decreasing over the years more and more, and today, a max level 90 king regenerates in only 46 minutes. Just goes to show how times have truly changed. Game Center. This one's for the Apple users, because apparently it was way easier on Android for the longest time. Does anyone remember how annoying it was to log into your alt accounts years ago? I mean, it was unnecessarily tedious, and part of this was because there was no Supercell ID, but the rest of this was because Apple. Goddamn Apple. You had to hop into the phone settings, go to Game Center, log out, log into the other account, go back to Clash of Clans, and confirm the village you're trying to load into. They could have just added a switch account button in Game Center, but no! Life before Supercell ID was terrible if you had multiple accounts. And it's part of the reason why I stopped playing on my alts for years. But yeah, today is super simple, newer players have no idea. OG winter scenery. Okay, if you remember this one, you deserve a veteran's discount in the shop. Back in 2012 and 2013, there was a custom winter scenery, and one of the defining features was that the water was frozen. The shore was covered in snow, as well as some of the rocks, and there was glaciers in the water. It was really cool, and it's unfortunate that it only appeared for the game's first 2 years. I wish they had kept doing it every winter, or at least given us the option. This was all before sceneries, so unless an update changed it for you, you were staring at the default one 365 days a year. You had no choice, and when changes like this came around, it was nice. It was a nice breath of fresh air. For the next several years, this winter scenery never appeared again. But fast forward to 2020, the default scenery was overhauled, and at the same time, they made a fall and winter variant. The winter one doesn't have that frozen lake anymore. In fact, it doesn't look anything at all like it. However, there are a few custom sceneries where it is frozen. Old shop UI. Does anyone remember the old shop button design? When you tapped on it, it brought you to this menu. The OG shop layout. Man, does that bring back so many memories. It pretty much stayed the same from 2012 all the way to 2018, so it was like this for a very long time, including the outdated assets. Like, I'm pretty sure Dark Elixir was never added to this picture right here. But other than nostalgia, I much prefer the new seamless UI, which was updated to accommodate the new League shop toward the end of 2018. Bigger magic item storage. When magic items were added in 2017, you could store a lot more than you can today. 10 books and 20 potions. That is a lot more than today's 1 book and 5 potion limit. Of course though, you have always been able to exceed it with real money. But if you were playing at the time, you might remember this was causing a bit of a problem in the game's economy. Max players were holding on to their magic items, and as quoted by community manager Darian, there were people with 25 to 50 books of buildings. And every time an update rolled around, they would immediately max out again and complain that there was not enough content in the game. I wonder why. Obviously, it was never intended for players to stash them all away like this, so by reducing the soft limit, players were more likely to use them. But man, those were some crazy times back then. Old app icons. You probably remember the game's icon looking like this for a pretty long time. Or maybe this one for the builder base. A lot of players came back for that one, right? And some of you OGs out there may even recall when the icon had a border around it from 2013 to 2014. This was a fairly common thing apps did back in the day to make it stand out in the home screen. But if we go back even further, serious, true OGs might remember these 2012 icons. This Christmas one being my favorite because they never did anything like that again, I don't know why. And the Barbarian one is slightly different from the one from later on. Here's a picture of all of them. Feels like a goddamn timeline of my childhood. I'm curious though, comment down below when you started playing. What era of icons or what year? The Champion League era. Once upon a time, reaching Champions League, the most badass league in the game, was a massive deal. If you hit Champions, you were officially a good player. You son of a bitch, you finally beat Clash of Clans. Now there's not really a reason why this was the case, it's more of a combination of a lot of things. Back then, matchmaking was much more different. Champions League was the highest league, the average player was around Town Hall 7 and 8, and progress was much slower. Nobody out here was dashing right to Town Hall 10 in a matter of a couple months, hell no. More like 3 years. So for a long time, it was a challenge for the average player to make it up there, and you had to be playing at the time to understand just how big of a deal reaching Champions League was. Nowadays, it's significantly easier. You still get 2,000 gems, which is awesome, but now that the average player is much higher than it was, being at Champions League is like chilling at Crystal 8 years ago. I guess the equivalent today would be more like reaching Legends League. Corner bases. Okay, this one's always kind of funny. Years ago, when people were still trying to figure out this whole Clash of Clans thing, you were very likely to see a lot of these bases. People putting the base in the corner with the walls only protecting one side because they assumed nothing could spawn in the outer edges. This was most likely caused by the fact that this genre of games was rather new when it came out. Before Clash of Clans, only backyard monsters existed. Over the years though, common knowledge about these games became more obvious and more available, and unless you're like Town Hall 4, people already know that that's not how it works. Old level 6 walls. Okay, I'm pretty sure no one today is gonna remember this one, but if you happen to be playing in July 2012 in the Canada soft launch, you might remember the level 6 walls looking like this. I'm so glad they changed it because if I had to look at that shit every day, I would have probably quit the game. My god, that is the ugliest shade of blue in a town hall that has no blue in it. On August 2012, for its global launch, the walls were updated to the more familiar design we know today. Thank god. Town Hall 8 flag. There's quite a few Town Halls with flags, Town Hall 9, 11, and 12, but some of you may remember the first Town Hall to ever have a flag, Town Hall 8. It had a different flag in front of it, and it was there since launch, presumably a way of showing it was the highest achievable Town Hall at the time. However, years went by and it remained there until December 2015 when it mysteriously disappeared just like that. No one knows why. But I'll forever remember Town Hall 8 having that damn flag that was different from the rest. Coming soon. No, I'm not talking about some movie coming soon to DVD and video. I'm talking about the Dark Elixir Barracks. I couldn't think of a good title, I don't know. When the Dark Elixir Barracks was added in early 2013, some of you may remember it had 10 slots, and the empty ones said coming soon. Everybody was hyped. We're getting 10 of these? And yeah, every time we got a new troop, it was hype. Everyone was excited. When the training screen was reworked though, it no longer had these slots, but fun fact, if it was still like this today and we fill it in, the 10th slot would have been barely added recently. The Electro Titan. Yes, it took 10 years. But I don't know, this coming soon thing is very nostalgic. It reminds me of the early days when we could only imagine what was coming soon and we had no idea. Keeping limited time troops. It doesn't feel like that long ago when you could do this, but you'd be surprised that the last time you could was 5 years ago. Keeping troops you weren't supposed to have after the season felt very illegal for some reason, but it was cool as hell. I remember keeping Ice Wizards for 7 months and finally using them in the middle of summer. It was surreal. And people had been doing this since the first temporary thing, like this dude who kept the Santa Surprise from 2012. But in October 2018, this was no longer possible. After all, they were meant to be temporary, but most importantly, it was causing some complications with the game's coding. No clan castle sleep. Okay, this might sound ridiculous, but remember when you couldn't set your clan castle to sleep and sometimes you'd buy a shield to protect your war troops? Did anyone do that? You gotta understand, getting expensive troops in your clan castle wasn't as fast and cheap as it is today, so nobody was willing to do it over and over for one person. This ain't no fucking charity. Thank God, ever since June 2018, putting the clan castle to sleep was possible. But even more, nowadays it's not that big of a deal. Troops cost nothing and one gem donation exists, which is far easier and less of a hassle. Clan War Sandboxing. If you were really into the war scene in 2014 and 2015, you may be familiar with the term. It was a method of cheating in war where you started an attack against a base, put your phone in airplane mode, and do the attack without it ever counting. This allowed players to see the traps, clan castle troops, and practice as much as they wanted. This was possible because, much like multiplayer, the battle didn't actually start until you dropped a troop, so you could always leave if you didn't drop a troop. So by putting it in airplane mode, the game just assumed that you're not attacking. Luckily, around the spring of 2015, this was fixed. Now, when you entered a battle, you had to attack, and if you tried to cheat, it would count as a 0%. Rushing. Okay, you can still rush to some extent, but you need to build everything associated with the town hall. Long gone are the days of rushing right to the highest town hall in the game with like 90% of the buildings missing. It was fun. People made YouTube series with no walls, no defenses, all kinds of crazy random shit that was really entertaining. But yeah, it was around the Town Hall 12 update when you couldn't do this anymore. It had nothing to do with rushing, but more so with the war scene. Unfortunately, people were engineering bases to have the upper hand, which ruined the fun for everybody. Archer Tower Rework. If you were playing in or before 2014, you might remember the Archer Tower being a little different than it is today. And I'm not referring to the visuals, I'm talking about mechanics. It was slower, like way slower. In December 2014, their damage was reduced by half, but their hit speed was doubled, so the damage per second was the exact same. This rework aimed to assist your base defending against spammy units like skeletons, lava pups, that kind of stuff. Let me know down below if you remember this one. I mean, if this change were to happen today, nobody would give a f. But back in the day, especially a building rework that hadn't really happened before was kind of a big deal. I don't know why, it's just like we cared more about stats or whatever. So guys, that wraps up this episode of things only Clash OGs may remember. I can't believe we've been doing this series for over 2.5 years. You've probably noticed I love talking about Clash history and bringing back old memories. It never really gets old. Feel free to comment down below some of your favorite nostalgic moments in Clash of Clans. As always, I hope you guys enjoyed today's video. Please like, comment, and subscribe. And as always, thanks for watching. Havoc Gaming out. Peace!